the way to make your vision compelling is to add emotion to it. And art does it in some clever ways. And so I've borrowed it because most of the time people will say like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, how will you know? So it's December 31st, 2018 and you hit it, then what happens? Like, what is it? Just you look at the bank, you look at the final number and say, ha, I did it. Do you tell anybody? Do you do anything? And eventually something will come out like, I guess what I'll do is I'll grab the family and we'll go out for a nice dinner. Something like that. We'll celebrate kind of mellow. It's not like it's a life-changing experience. So Greg, that's what I'll do is I will celebrate by taking somebody out to dinner. The family out to dinner. And so the next questions I'm going to ask are the only way to describe them are emotionally, right? So I say, well, what is that going to look like? Let's dig into the details of what is it? Is everybody going to be dressed up? Is everybody going to be are you just going to grab them on the 31st and say, hey, before everybody disappears for New Year's Eve, we're going to take you out? Are you going to do it on the 5th of January? Set a date in the future and everybody's going to be dressed up, new suits for the boys, new dresses for the girls, and then you're going to go to a steak place. Like, give me a description of what it looks like, and then they will describe what it is that it looks like. In that, right, you have to describe it because you have to start understanding what it does is it starts putting you in an emotional state where you start to figure out this is what it could look like, and it would be kind of fun. Okay, and then I say, well, what does it sound like? What are the sights and sounds on that? Happiness, glasses clinking, kids well behaved and giggling, more food that has ever been seen on a single table, a fine bottle of wine, a driver rented for the night so we don't have to worry about mom and dad having one too many tipples. What does it sound like? Like, what are some of the noises that you hear in there? What does it feel like, right? So now we start getting into almost creative fiction or creative nonfiction, where let's describe this. Like, how are you feeling at that moment? Are you proud? Are you swelling with pride? Are you worried about 2019? What is it that's happening at that moment? And then what does all this taste like, and what does it smell like? Smell, they've said, I've heard said, is one of our most powerful memory generator. So if you can describe to me what you think it's going to smell like in the future, there's a good chance that you will lock this into your memory. And that's really what the point of this whole exercise is. And that's, over time, I figured out that's what Art was doing, is by transporting me into the future, he was having me put some numbers to it. But outside of the numbers that he had me put to it, he was also having me describe in an emotional way what was happening. It wasn't just the numbers. It wasn't just a high income number. It was, what are you going to do with it? Right? Are you going to pay down some debt? Are you going to buy a new investment? Are you going to reward yourself with a car? What are all those things? And then what's an emotional way for me to describe it? By describing it in that emotional way, what you do is you lock it in. And that's really the first part of F.I.T. In the book that I just finished, and it's coming out at the end of January, will be the ebook, and the physical book. I'm just looking at a galley right now. Chapter 6 is what I'm editing. And the book is going to teach you how to describe your focus, your future strategy, your strategic vision in an emotional way that your people will remember. Because in the end, there's only a few things that lock our brains onto things. And a long time ago, I read this book. I think it was Moonwalking with Einstein, and the author, who was a journalist, he taught himself all these memory tricks because he was astounded by these people who could memorize a deck of cards just by looking at them, and the World Memory Championships. And in there, they talk about like memory palaces. And if you've seen the Sherlock shows, Sherlock, he uses this memory palace technique. It's an ancient technique, right? That's why they say that's how Homer was able to recite these epic poems from memory, is because we've got this ability to compartmentalize large things. And so what makes a memory stick? And generally if it's something that's funny, ridiculous, or sexy. These are things that our brains are naturally wired to remember. So as you're describing your future state, one of the things I don't talk about at dinner is your celebration dinner, what happens after dinner, but maybe you need to lock that into your brain about just how amazing that evening would be with your significant other in order to make sure that it stays there. Because once a memory gets locked in like that, you tend to remember it more often than not. Like I can remember the ridiculous title of that book just because it's very visual, moonwalking and Einstein.